Get the unmissable news stories of the day.
This is the Beijing Hour.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host.
Shane Bigham with you on this Tuesday, June 16th, 2026. You're listening to the Beijing Hour, coming to you live from the Chinese capital. On today's program, Beijing says China is willing to build a community with a shared future with Myanmar and build on their cooperation. The U.S. and Iran have electronically signed the MOU for ending the war ahead of a formal ceremony on Friday. Ebola cases in the DRC continue to surge, though neighboring Uganda has recorded no new cases for 10 days. In business, Chinese economic numbers show steady growth. In sports, a bit of a shock for Spain in its World Cup opener. In culture and entertainment, Chinese cinema is emerging on the global stage. Now the day's top stories. Chinese President Xi Jinping says the country is willing to work with Myanmar to jointly build a community with a shared future. He made the remarks during talks with Myanmar President Min Aung Hlaing, who's on a state visit to China until Friday. Zhao Yang has details.
President Xi said China and Myanmar share a brotherly kinship known as Bao Po, noting that this year marks the 76th anniversary of diplomatic relations. President Xi said the two sides have stood together through storms and supported each other, jointly initiating and practicing the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence and setting an example of equality and mutual benefit between nations. President Xi says China adheres to the principles of amity, sincerity, mutual benefit and inclusiveness, and places China-Myanmar relations high on the agenda of its neighborhood diplomacy. He said China pursues a policy of non-interference in internal affairs, and its friendly policy towards Myanmar is oriented to all the Myanmar people. Xi also reaffirmed China's support for Myanmar's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and efforts by the new government to balance development and security as it seeks a development path suited to its own national conditions and backed by its people. This year marks the start of China's 15th five-year plan. President Xi said China is willing to share its development experience with Myanmar and to jointly build a China-Myanmar community with a shared future that features political friendship and mutual trust, win-win development cooperation, security coordination and mutual reinforcement, and people-to-people exchanges featuring mutual learning. Such efforts will deliver greater benefits to the two peoples and contribute stronger impetus to regional peace and development. Stressing that China is the longest shared border neighbor and a reliable friend and partner of Myanmar, Xi said both sides must maintain strategic clarity and unity amid a turbulent international landscape. Highlighting the China-Myanmar Economic Corridor as a flagship project under the Belt and Road Initiative, President Xi urged steady progress on key projects whilst ensuring security so as to boost growth and livelihoods. He said China is willing to step up support for post-earthquake reconstruction in Myanmar and deliver more small and beautiful assistance projects, jointly telling the story of China-Myanmar mutually beneficial cooperation. He said the two sides should continue to crack down hard on online gambling and telecom fraud, as well as drug smuggling, to effectively safeguard the interests and security of the people of both countries. He said China supports relevant parties in Myanmar in advancing peace and reconciliation through dialogue and achieving long-term stability in northern Myanmar, which serves the fundamental and long-term interests of Myanmar and its people. For his part, President Min Aung Hlaing said the two nations have always supported and helped each other and have upheld the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence, establishing a solid, good neighborly partnership. He said the relationship has now entered a new stage of building a shared future of solidarity. He thanked China for its long-standing, selfless support for Myanmar's development, stability, and peace and reconciliation, and reaffirmed adherence to the One China principle. Min Aung Hlaing said the new government is fully committed to advancing domestic peace and development and is actively exploring a political system and development path suited to its national conditions. He also highlighted China's 15th five-year plan, saying it offers important opportunities for Asian neighbors, including Myanmar. The president expressed readiness to strengthen all-round cooperation, jointly advance the CMEC, and enhance trade and investment. He said Myanmar will fully ensure the safety of Chinese enterprises and personnel in Myanmar and stands ready to work closely with Beijing to crack down on online gambling and telecom fraud and safeguard border security and stability. He added that Myanmar fully supports the 4 major global initiatives put forward by President Xi and will enhance multilateral communication and coordination with China. After the talks, the two heads of state witnessed the signing of multiple cooperation documents in areas including transport and livelihood.
That was Zhao Yang on the talks between the presidents of China and Myanmar. The relationship between China and Myanmar is built on cooperation across many fronts. The China-Myanmar Economic Corridor, launched in 2017, is a flagship project in bilateral cooperation. One of its major projects is the China-Myanmar oil and gas pipeline, which has delivered more than 100 million tons of crude oil and natural gas to China. Connectivity is also advancing through the China-Myanmar Railway, spanning over 1,900 kilometers. That line's designed for speeds of 160 kilometers per hour. The Chinese section from Kunming to Ruili is nearing completion. Security cooperation has also delivered results. The two countries have jointly dismantled major criminal networks operating in northern Myanmar. China is also supporting people's general well-being in Myanmar through cataract surgeries and disaster relief. Since 2013, over 6,000 cataract surgeries have been carried out. And following the 2025 earthquake, China provided emergency assistance to over 150 million US dollars. Professor Song Qingrun of Beijing Foreign Studies University says the Myanmar president's visit can help the two countries deepen strategic coordination and expand cooperation.
High-level political exchanges, including the Myanmar foreign minister's earlier trip to China and key agreements, build mutual trust by creating predictable, transparent communication channels. These interactions allow both sides to clarify strategic intentions, align on core interests, and reduce misunderstandings. Regular dialogue fosters a habit of consultation, making cooperation more resilient to external disruptions. The side agreements serve as concrete benchmarks, turning political goodwill into actionable plans. This sequenced diplomatic approach ensures that the presidential visit is not symbolic but substantive, enabling both countries to synchronize policies on regional security, infrastructure projects, and multilateral framework like Latin-American cooperation, thereby deepening strategic coordination and bilateral cooperation.
Well, he adds that the greatest potential for expanding China-Myanmar cooperation lies in infrastructure connectivity.
The greatest potential for expanding China-Myanmar cooperation lies in infrastructure connectivity under the Belt Road Initiative, especially the China-Myanmar Economic Corridor, including the Tukpyuk deep sea port, hydropower, and renewables, can boost Myanmar industrial base. Agriculture, cross-border trade, and digital economy are also emerging high-growth areas. Public health, vaccine production, and pandemic preparedness offer new fronts for joint action. People-to-people ties, including education and tourism, will strengthen social trust between the two sides. These actors can deliver tangible economic dividends and solidify the community with a shared future.
That was Professor Song Qingrun from Beijing Foreign Studies University. Coming up, the U.S. and Iran have electronically signed their MOU for ending the war.
Discover the realities and responses to our changing climate with Climate Watch. Uncover critical issues such as the Masai Mara's disrupted wildebeest migration and the drop in the Panama Canal's water levels. Delve into solutions for a sustainable future. Tune in to Climate Watch on your favorite podcast platform. Become more eco-conscious and take action to protect our planet.
It's 10 minutes past the hour. The U.S. and Iran have electronically signed a memorandum of understanding aiming to end the war. And formal signing is set for Friday in Switzerland. The agreement reopens the Strait of Hormuz and extends a ceasefire for a 60-day negotiation period. Walter Morris reports from Washington, D.C.
Well, the United States and Iran haven't released the official text, but U.S. President Donald Trump says both countries have signed a memorandum of understanding and it will lead to success for the world. Now, he made the major announcement as he arrived in France for the G7 summit Monday. He began his European trip with a bilateral meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron. Before their talks got underway, Trump highlighted the preliminary agreement between the U.S. and Iran to end the war. The deal will reportedly provide a structure for how the relationship between the two countries will operate going forward. That includes reopening the Strait of Hormuz and extending a ceasefire for 60 days so they can negotiate more sensitive issues like Iran's nuclear program. According to the White House, in addition to lifting the naval blockade and reopening the strait, the MOU will provide some sanction relief for Iran. U.S. officials say those benefits and release of frozen funds come with the condition that Tehran works with Washington on nuclear issues.
They know that we want a verifiable long-term commitment to not build or procure a nuclear weapon. We have that in this agreement, but fundamentally it's set up in such a way where we're going to have to attach their commitments to deliverables that then are met with economic benefits for the Iranian people. That's the way that we've structured it.
Trump says the document has been signed electronically and more details of the official agreement will be released by the end of the week.
This is a very powerful document and I want it to be released probably pretty soon. I would say sometime after Friday, because the strait opens completely. It's open now, but it opens completely. We'll have all the mines knocked out for the most part. We have a lot of lanes right now already.
Mr. President.
So I think sometime in the very near future. Yeah.
And Vice President J.D. Vance is set to attend that formal signing ceremony in Geneva Friday. And the future of the deal and peace in the region could all depend on what happens in Lebanon next. Now that the MOU has been signed, Trump says he's going to shift his focus to ending fighting there. Senior U.S. officials say Israel's withdrawal from Lebanon isn't part of the recent agreement between the U.S. and Iran, but for weeks, Tehran has said that any peace deal will have to include ending all hostilities. Israel says it retains the right to act militarily. And when asked about Lebanon Monday, Trump said they'll straighten it out and they need to talk to Hezbollah.
That was Walter Morris reporting. Iran says the two key remaining topics once the agreement's formally signed are sanctions and nuclear issues. President Masoud Pezeshkian says the U.S.-Iran MOU is an important step toward ending the conflict, but a final agreement for a lasting truce is yet to take shape. Meantime, fighting between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon has eased, but it's not stopped completely. Saper Saremi has more from Tehran.
I've just attended Iran's Foreign Ministry weekly press briefing, where the focus was the memorandum of understanding between Iran and the United States.
According to this memorandum of understanding, the U.S. is obligated to lift all sanctions against Iran. This issue, together with the nuclear file, forms part of the topics to be discussed the day after the signing of the memorandum of understanding, with the goal of reaching a mutual understanding and agreement on them within 60 days.
The spokesperson emphasized that ending the war in Lebanon is an integral part of this agreement. He confirmed that Lebanon is mentioned 3 times in the document, with a key focus on respecting the country's territorial integrity. He also argued that, from Tehran's perspective, Israel's recent actions have ironically strengthened the cohesion of the resistance front. Addressing the broader relationship with Washington, the tone from the podium was cautious. The spokesperson noted that the deep-seated mistrust among the Iranian public, framing this memorandum as merely an initial step toward reducing tensions. He added that the ministry is now planning diplomatic outreach to regional countries to discuss the next steps. Diplomatically, the situation seems to be in a good position, though we are still waiting to see how these commitments play out in coming days.
That was Saremi in Tehran. Ships have been seen transiting near the Strait of Hormuz after the announcement of the U.S.-Iran agreement. Iranian media reports say 3 oil tankers and 2 ships carrying essential supplies have passed through the zone previously under a U.S. blockade. Tracking data also shows that several Iranian ships have successfully crossed the area. The war between the U.S. and Iran lasted for over 100 days. The conflict started on February 28th when the U.S. and Israel launched joint military strikes against Iran, killing the then supreme leader. Hezbollah in Lebanon joined the conflict, launching rockets and drones at Israel in retaliation for the killing of Ali Khamenei. His son, Mojtaba Khamenei, became the new supreme leader in March. Washington and Tehran agreed to a 2-week ceasefire in April, but peace talks in Pakistan collapsed and the U.S. announced a shipping blockade on Iran. Negotiations stalled, punctuated by sporadic clashes. A U.S. military helicopter was shot down on June 8th, triggering a new wave of strikes by both sides. Iran then moved to close the Strait of Hormuz. The two sides finally reached a memorandum of understanding on the weekend to extend the ceasefire by 60 days for negotiations, with a formal signing in Switzerland on Friday. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he'll not allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon and that Israeli troops will stay in southern Lebanon. Iran says its agreement with the U.S. requires a full cessation of hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah. Netanyahu says Israel retains the right to respond to Hezbollah attacks.
For decades, I have been fighting Iran's efforts to acquire nuclear weapons. I can define this as my life's mission. I have upheld it until now, and I will uphold it in the future as well. With or without a deal, Iran will not have nuclear weapons. Not today, and not tomorrow. As long as I am Prime Minister of Israel, this will not happen. Regarding Lebanon, we created there a buffer zone, a security zone. We will stay there as long as necessary. Iran wanted us to retreat from there. It didn't happen.
Hezbollah says it targeted Israeli soldiers advancing in a border area in southern Lebanon, forcing them to retreat. The group also says it welcomes the memorandum of understanding between Iran and the U.S., calling it a major achievement. The initial agreement between the U.S. and Iran has halted months of war. And while the fighting was concentrated in the Middle East, the impact was felt far beyond the region. Across Africa, many countries are grappling with higher fuel costs, rising food prices, and mounting pressure on already fragile economies. Robert Nagila has more.
The first sector across Africa to feel the impact of the conflict was energy and petroleum. Global oil prices surged, with Brent crude briefly rising above $119 a barrel in March, soon after the conflict erupted. A blockade of the Strait of Hormuz by Iran and the United States severely disrupted supply chains and pushed up fuel costs across the continent, triggering shortages in some countries and higher pump prices in others.
Some countries have been worse hit than others. Some have managed to use subsidies, etc., to cushion, for example, the fuel prices, to not make it too high, while others have not managed to do that. Nigeria, for example, which is the largest producer of oil on the African continent, its fuel prices went up the highest.
Agriculture was also hit. The Middle East is also a major supplier of fertilizer to Africa. Disruptions to production and trading routes drove up prices during the critical March to May planting season. A United Nations report warned that higher input costs would likely translate into rising food prices, with low-income households bearing the greatest burden. The conflict also affected remittance flows from millions of African workers in the Middle East, reducing a key source of income for many families across the continent. At the same time, the African Development Bank says at least 29 African currencies weakened against the US dollar, increasing the cost of servicing external debt. Interestingly, though, some countries recorded gains amidst the conflict in the Middle East. A joint policy brief by the African Union, the United Nations and the African Development Bank says Nigeria benefited from higher oil prices and increased exports from the Dangote refinery, while Mozambique saw renewed momentum in its liquefied natural gas sector. Ports in South Africa, Namibia and Mauritius also handled more traffic as vessels avoided the Red Sea and rerouted around the Cape of Good Hope. Kenya emerged as an important logistics hub through the port of Lamu, while Ethiopian Airlines expanded its role as a key air link between Asia, Africa and Europe. But the report cautions the gains may be temporary and may not be enough to offset the broader inflationary and fiscal pressures facing most parts of the continent.
That was Robert Nagila reporting. Group of Seven summit is underway now in eastern France. Leaders of the U.S., Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Canada, and Japan have gathered. It comes after Washington and Tehran reached that preliminary agreement to end their war. The three-day event is set to focus on a range of issues, including the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Middle East tensions, economic growth, and artificial intelligence. Sarah Coates has more.
A packed agenda for world leaders to get through here at the G7 summit in France, but really what's dominating talks is the Middle East, coming on the back, of course, of that framework, that peace framework that was announced by the United States. This is, of course, to halt the war between the United States and Iran, which began in February. Now, what these world leaders will really be pressing the US President Donald Trump on is what this deal actually contains. They'll be wanting to know what happens with the Strait of Hormuz and how it will be reopened, along with Iran's nuclear ambitions. Now, we did hear a little bit from the French President Emmanuel Macron, who is hosting this event. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
This agreement is a good thing because it is what we have been calling for weeks. First, we are going to do everything and mobilize ourselves starting this evening within the framework of our work, and tomorrow as well, since we will not simply have the members of the G7, which are the 7 major democratic economies in the world. We have brought in partners, and tomorrow we will have a session on the question of Iran, with in particular Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar.
Now, Ukraine is also very high on the agenda, with these G7 leaders needing to show unity, needing to show their position that they are still behind Kyiv, and they will be providing or continuing to provide military and financial support. But really, aside from these crises, France wants to focus this summit on economic security and also critical mineral supplies. Now, artificial intelligence is also another major theme of this year's G7 summit. What we're expecting over the next couple of days are top executives from these large tech, large AI firms. They're expected to convene on the summit, and they'll hold sideline meetings with these G7 leaders. Now, what they're meant to be discussing is regulation and also online safety, especially for miners. So certainly, once again, a very, very packed summit.
That was Sarah Coates on the G7 summit in France. Coming up, Ebola cases continue to climb in the DRC, but neighboring Uganda has seen no new cases for 10 days.
You've been listening to programs from CGTN Radio.
CGTN Radio.
We invite you to visit us online for more audio, pictures, and in-depth reports. At radio.cgtn.com, you can access a wide range of programs and find your favorite news, talk, features, entertainment shows, and podcasts. Hear the difference with CGTN Radio.
23 minutes past the hour. The Democratic Republic of the Congo has reported over 800 confirmed Ebola cases, including over 190 deaths. It reported 26 new cases and 11 deaths on Sunday, bringing the case fatality rate to nearly 24%. Authorities say 363 patients are in isolation, while 48 people have recovered since the start of the outbreak. In neighboring Uganda, the health ministry says travelers leaving the country do not need Ebola-free certificates, and such documents are not required for visa applications. Uganda says it's not recorded any new Ebola cases in the past 10 days, with its total confirmed cases remaining at 19. China's dispatched medical experts to the DRC to help with its response to the Ebola outbreak. Ambassador Zhao Bin explained more about the experts' work.
The Chinese anti-epidemic medical expert team consists of specialists covering the fields of epidemiology, clinical treatment, virology, and traditional Chinese medicine. The 5 experts possess extensive professional experience and have participated in global health assistance missions and Ebola response efforts on multiple occasions. Currently, Chinese experts are working with their Congolese counterparts to establish a comprehensive system covering triage, screening, treatment, and infection prevention and control, with the aim of creating a model for Ebola cases management and helping improve the country's epidemic response capacity.
He added that China will continue to support the DRC in strengthening its public health system.
China's health cooperation with African countries is based on local realities, respects the needs of partner countries, and emphasizes practical, sustainable results. China has been sending medical teams to the DRC for more than 50 years and has helped build 2 general hospitals in the country. China has also repeatedly provided emergency humanitarian assistance when needed. These measures, combining immediate support with long-term capacity building, have been widely welcomed by all sectors of Congolese society. Within the scope of its capabilities, China will continue to support the DRC in improving healthcare conditions and strengthening its public health system.
Now, as Zhao Bin, the Chinese ambassador to the DRC. The U.S. Air Force B-52 bomber carrying 8 crew members that crashed Monday shortly after takeoff it crashed near Edwards Air Force Base in California's Mojave Desert. The aircraft departed at 11:20 in the morning local time for what officials described as a routine test mission. James Hayes is the deputy commander at the base and said the crash was not survivable.
Edwards Air Force Base experienced a horrible tragedy, and we lost 8 great Americans. This crash is deemed to be unsurvivable, and right now our thoughts and prayers are with the families of those that lost their loved ones.
Officials are working to account for all personnel. The cause of the crash is under investigation. The airfield is closed. Meanwhile, the base has suspended all non-commercial visitor passes until further notice. Brazilian officials are inspecting the scene of a deadly helicopter crash in Rio de Janeiro, where 2 aircraft collided mid-air on Sunday, killing 6 people. 1 helicopter plunged into a car dealership parking lot. Rio de Janeiro Mayor Eduardo Cavalier has extended condolences.
Once again, we extend our condolences to the families of the pilots and the passengers. What happened is a tragedy, a terrible accident, and we will be here fully available to provide support, to offer this initial assistance, and to follow through with the procedures that an accident like this requires.
Police have confirmed the deaths of Argentine YouTube star Gaspar Prim Diaz, known as Gaspi, with over 2.8 million followers. Fellow Argentine Lucas Vinelli and 3 Brazilians. 1 foreign victim remains unidentified. American singer Oliver Tree was listed on 1 helicopter's passenger manifest, but police have yet to confirm his body's been found. Authorities suspect human error caused the collision and are investigating whether air traffic controllers or a pilot were at fault. 32-year-old Tree was in Rio during a world tour. Just a day earlier, he posted a comical video of himself playing soccer in a local neighborhood. The investigation continues as families await further answers. Thailand's preparing for the El Niño weather pattern that global agencies expect to persist through 2027. The Thai Environment Ministry said it's developing high-resolution climate data and risk mapping tools, citing data from international climate organizations. The ministry said the world is almost certain to enter El Niño conditions in June or July. It said the intensity will peak between November and January. It expects rainfall across many parts of Thailand to be well below normal. Local authorities say heavy rain flooded parts of southern China over the weekend, forcing school closures in Guangdong province and prompting emergency rescues in neighboring Guangxi. In Lufeng, southeastern Guangdong province, torrential rain from Saturday night to Monday morning brought an average of around 330 millimeters of rainfall. Several villagers reported severe flooding, with waters reaching nearly 1.5 meters deep in some areas. All schools in Lufeng were closed on Monday. Forecasters have warned of more heavy rain through Friday, with flash floods and landslides possible. In Guangxi, 2 construction workers trapped by rising river waters were rescued by firefighters using an inflatable boat. At 29 past the hour, Beijing will see moderate rainfall tonight. It becomes cloudy tomorrow, low of 20, high of 31 for Wednesday. Shanghai will be overcast through tomorrow, a low of 22 and a high of 30. Chongqing will see overcast conditions overnight. Heavy rainfall developing with a low of 25 and a high of 29. Nanchang will be overcast, giving way to thunder showers, a low of 25 and a high of 33. Lhasa will be cloudy tonight and tomorrow, a low of 13 and a high of 26. Elsewhere in Asia, Islamabad will see a light rainfall tonight and tomorrow. The low's 27. It's up to 38 on Wednesday. It's time for a short break. So far this hour, Beijing says China is willing to build a community with a shared future with Myanmar and build on their cooperation. The U.S. and Iran have electronically signed an MOU for ending their war ahead of a formal ceremony on Friday. And Ebola cases in the DRC continue to surge, though neighboring Uganda has recorded no new cases for 10 days. Shane Bigham with you. Stay with us here on the Beijing Hour.
From the refreshing cup of tea that starts your morning to the paper that you write on, the roots of many familiar parts of modern life can be traced back to ancient ideas. Join us on Made in Ancient China and discover how ideas born millennia ago became some of the world's greatest treasures. Made in Ancient China brings you stories of human ambition, inspiration, and connection. Now available on all major podcast platforms.
Shh, listen up. Can you hear the heartbeat of our world? It's vibrant and pulsating with the essence of life itself. From the stem of trees to the gurgle of rivers. From the silent strength of mountains to the icy whispers of glaciers. Even the solid ground beneath our feet. And right there, in the midst of all, beats the heart of humanity. What if those other heartbeats were to stop? Would ours keep on ticking?
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host.
Shane Bigham with you on this Tuesday. Still to come. In business, Chinese economic numbers show steady growth. In sports, a bit of a shock for Spain in its World Cup opener. In culture and entertainment, Chinese cinema is emerging on the global stage. To contact us, you can email radio@cgtn.com or follow our X account @CGTNradio. You're also welcome to subscribe to our Substack newsletter, Beyond Beijing, for the world's biggest stories, along with sharp insights and exclusive analysis. But now a check of the day's headlines. Chinese President Xi Jinping says the China-Myanmar Economic Corridor is a flagship project of their Belt and Road cooperation. He made the remarks in holding talks in Beijing with President Min Aung-Hlaing, who's on a state visit to China. President Xi said both sides should steadily advance the construction of key projects to help Myanmar develop its economy and improve livelihoods. This year marks the start of China's 15th five-year plan. President Xi said China is willing to share its development experience with Myanmar. The Myanmar president said China's rollout of the 15th five-year plan has created major opportunities for its Asian neighbors. He said Myanmar looks forward to strengthening cooperation with China and enhancing bilateral trade and investment volumes. The two countries signed cooperation documents covering transportation, livelihoods, and other sectors. The Security Council has unanimously adopted a China-drafted resolution extending the UN mission in Afghanistan for 1 year. Chinese Ambassador Fu Song thanked Council members, stating the resolution strengthens UNAMA's core work while removing outdated tasks.
The resolution maintains and strengthens UNAMA's core mandate, including coordinating international assistance, conducting political mediation, and promoting the protection of human rights while streamlining outdated or redundant mandates as necessary. This will enable UNAMA to focus on its key responsibilities, better respond to the needs arising from the situation in Afghanistan, and address the concerns of the international community.
The resolution urges the international community to increase humanitarian support, return Afghan central bank assets, and lift unilateral sanctions. It also expresses deep concern over women's and girls' rights, urging Afghanistan to protect equal access to education, healthcare, and public life. Fu Song expressed hope that Afghan authorities will heed international calls for openness and responsibility. He reiterated the importance of counterterrorism efforts and said China will continue supporting UNAMA's efforts toward lasting peace and stability in Afghanistan. That new mandate now runs through June 17th of 2027. China's Shuilong Polar Research icebreaker set sail for an Arctic expedition after completing scheduled maintenance. Meanwhile, China's Shuilong 2 icebreaker is in the final stage of its overhaul. It'll join the Arctic mission once that work is complete. Dubbed the twin stars of China's polar research fleet, both icebreakers have made irreplaceable contributions to Arctic research, shipping, and marine science. The vessels are on track to embark on their next expeditions as scheduled. Hong Kong Baptist University researchers have extracted an antiviral compound from the Justicia plant that fights viruses, including bird flu and Ebola. The active ingredient, a type of lignin, blocks viruses from entering cells by disrupting cellular acidification. The plant extract also shows promise against mosquito-borne diseases like dengue and Zika. The team says the discovery could pave the way for broad-spectrum antiviral treatments. Hainan's recruiting up to 50 overseas influencers as tourism ambassadors for the tropical island through December. Applicants should have active social media followings and a passion for the island's beaches, ethnic cultures, and cuisine. Hainan's visa-free policies now cover 59 countries with 78 international routes linking 45 cities worldwide. Inbound tourism jumped 35% last year to 1.5 million visitors. Officials say the initiative combines targeted promotions, travel industry familiarization tours, and a global network of overseas offices to remove barriers for international visitors. The Iranian foreign minister says Tehran's working to build understanding with the United States despite a lack of trust. Abbas Araghchi told state television that Iran has not forgotten America's past withdrawal from international agreements.
Failure to fulfill commitments and Americans tearing up agreements, and all of this is in our minds. So we're basing the negotiation plan and implementing the understanding that has been reached on distrust and past experiences.
Araghchi said they're trying to create economic opportunities for the country through this path. The remarks come amid ongoing tensions between the two countries over Iran's nuclear program and regional activities. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in business, Chinese economic numbers show steady growth.
The Beijing Hour, your window on China and the rest of the world.
37 past the hour. Stock markets on the Chinese mainland closed mixed on Tuesday. The Shanghai Composite was down around 0.1%. The Shenzhen Component gained over 0.9. Component and power equipment shares were among the top gainers. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng Index decreased more than 1.4%. Japan's Nikkei increased over 0.1%. Chinese authorities say the national economy showed steady momentum with innovation-led and high-quality development in May. The country achieved gains in broadly stable employment and prices, resilient foreign trade, and expanding new growth drivers. Zhou Yixin has more.
Officials say China's economy has maintained steady growth in the first 5 months of this year, despite external uncertainties. They especially highlighted great momentum in advanced manufacturing, high-tech industries, service industries, and foreign trade.
In May, against a complex and volatile international backdrop, with lingering spillover effects from geopolitical conflicts in the Middle East and high temperatures and heavy rainfall in some domestic regions weighing on market supply and demand, regional authorities and government departments rolled out more proactive and forceful macroeconomic policies. They actively responded to external headwinds and overcame domestic difficulties, ensuring steady growth in production and supply, faster expansion of new growth drivers, and solid safeguards for employment and people's livelihoods. As a result, the national economy maintained an overall stable development trend, marked by a continued shift toward new growth engines and high-quality development.
And now here are some of the key takeaways. First, China's industrial output grew by 5.4% year-on-year in the first 5 months. Output of products like lithium batteries, industrial robots, and 3D printing equipment have all increased rapidly. While second, the service sector continued to expand, growing by 4.8% in the first 5 months. Some of the strongest growth came from information and software services, leasing and business services, and also financial services. While third, consumer spending continued to recover. Retail sales of goods and services rose 2.8%, with service consumption growing by 5.4%. Fourth, China's foreign trade remained resilient despite global uncertainties. In the first 5 months, total import and exports grow by 15%, with imports growing by more than 20%.
That's Zhou Yixin reporting. And for more on China's economy, Lily Lu spoke with Wang Yaojing, an associate professor of economics at Peking University.
We saw the release of a bag of economic data for the month of May. What are the key takeaways?
Well, I would say the key takeaway lies in the high-tech manufacturing acceleration, particularly industries that are aligned with the new quality productive forces. So the data confirms that this concept has realized into a powerful macroeconomic engine. We're seeing the broader industrial output grew steadily at 4.5%, but the high-tech manufacturing exploded by 15.1% year on year. And on the ground, we're seeing a product-level boom in complex next-generation technologies. For example, 3D printing devices and also industrial robots are scoring double-digit heights. So this proves that firms are aggressively automating to counter demographic shifts and then securing the global green tech supply chain. And moreover, this innovation is highly profitable and digitally integrated, giving the company the capacity to reinvest. And in fact, we're seeing intellectual property investment growing as well. So China's economic engine is being fundamentally rewired, and we're seeing advanced manufacturing and intangible digital assets being successfully scaling up and supporting China's growth.
And also, this is the first time that we see China officially publish its growth figures for the total retail sales of consumer goods and services. What is the significance?
Well, this new indicator aligns with China's broader economic transition. For one, is that as China's economy matures, we have an increasing share of household spending into the services sector, which traditionally is not included in the retail sales. And the second fold is that the policymakers have repeatedly emphasized the need to shift growth from investment or export-led expansion towards a consumption-driven growth. And this new gauge will allow investors, business and policymakers to better assess the changes in consumer behaviors and identify new growth opportunities. In that sense, this is not just a statistical adjustment. It reflects the evolving structure of China's economy.
On the investment side, spending on intellectual property products actually grew faster during the January to May period. So what does this robust growth signal?
Well, first, it marks a structural pivot from tangible to intangible capital. And capital is no longer pouring into excess physical capacity or real estate, and instead it's flowing into R&D, advanced software and patents, and this is the fuel of the double-digit output boom we're seeing in industrial robots and in lithium batteries. And second, unlike physical real estate investment, which triggers highly localized and commodity-heavy supply chains, the investment in IP products possess a broader economic multiplier effect. So ultimately, China is replacing this debt-laden physical accumulation with high multiplier intellectual capital to escape this low margin traps of traditional assembly manufacturing to high value-added, innovation-driven growth model.
I was Associate Professor Wang Yaojing at Peking University, offering her insights on China's economic development. China's property market showed modest recovery in May, particularly in first-tier cities. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, new home prices in first-tier cities edged up by 0.2% on a monthly basis, with Shenzhen posting the largest gain. Pre-owned home prices in these cities rose by 0.4%. Second- and third-tier cities saw slight monthly declines. On a yearly basis, the decline narrowed across all three tiers. New home prices in first-tier cities fell 1.7% last month, improving from a 2% drop in April. Shanghai stood out as a bright spot, with new home prices surging 3.2% from a year earlier. Danish pharmaceutical giant Novo Nordisk says it'll inject an additional 200 million yuan, or $29.5 million into its production base in Tianjin. The company says once completed, the expansion project will further lift the production capacity and supply efficiency to better meet the growing diversified medication demands of the Chinese market. The production site in Tianjin is one of the company's strategic global manufacturing hubs, supplying injection devices and finished pharmaceutical products to China and other markets. The company says as a key pillar of its global supply system. The Tianjin plant will continue to produce innovative products locally. It adds that this investment demonstrates the company's commitment to deepening its presence and pursuing long-term development in China. The Bank of Japan has raised its key interest rate to 1%, the highest level in 3 decades. The quarter-point hike targets inflation driven by a weak yen and surging oil prices linked to the Middle East conflicts. The move marks a sharp departure from the near-zero rates that had been in place for decades to revive the economy. The central bank acknowledged that the economy has recovered, but warned that higher crude prices fueled by Middle East tensions could weigh on corporate profits and household incomes. While expecting moderate growth ahead, the BOJ cautioned that global AI demand and financial market volatility remain key uncertainties to monitor. Australia's central bank has voted to leave interest rates on hold, warning that inflation is likely to remain high as a result of the disruption to global oil supplies. The Reserve Bank of Australia says its Monetary Policy Board voted unanimously during a 2-day meeting in Sydney to keep the cash rate target unchanged at 4.35%. The decision's in line with economic expectations after Australia's annual rate of inflation fell from 4.6% in March to 4.2% in April. Despite the fall, the Monetary Policy Board says higher fuel prices have directly added to inflation. It also says there are indications that this is passing through to the prices of other goods and services, so inflation is likely to remain high for some time. South Africa is promoting its tourism offerings in Mexico during the ongoing FIFA World Cup. South African Minister of Tourism Patricia de Lille has met with Mexico's Vice Secretary of Tourism to showcase South Africa as a travel destination. De Lille also met with more than 40 leading Mexican tour operators to promote the country's tourism offerings and highlights the benefits of the country's electronic travel authorization. The South African Tourism Ministry says Mexico has been identified as one of the country's priority growth markets. South Africa has already seen encouraging growth from the Mexican market, with arrivals from the country increasing at an average rate of 13% over the past 3 years. The two countries have signed a 3-year tourism action plan from 2026 to 29 to stimulate travel and tourism growth. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in sports, a bit of a shock for Spain in the World Cup opener.
Sideline Story brings you all things sports related. The hottest topics, latest events, juiciest stories, all with a very personal take. Subscribe to Sideline Story Podcast for heated sports discussions covering events that are happening in China and around the world.
47 past the hour. In sports, Spain's FIFA World Cup campaign got off to a frustrating start after the European champions were held to a surprise scoreless draw by Cape Verde in their Group H opener in Atlanta. Despite dominating possession and creating a number of chances, Spain could not find a way past veteran goalkeeper Vizinha, whose outstanding performance earned Cape Verde a memorable point in the nation's first ever World Cup match. Vizinha produced a series of crucial saves throughout the game to deny the Spanish attack and preserve the historic result. Speaking afterwards, the 40-year-old goalkeeper said the achievement was a source of immense pride for his country.
For me, it's an honor to represent my country. We do this with passion, with love, because we are from a small country with a little bit condition. Our qualification was very difficult also in the group with Cameroon, Libya. But we know if we follow the plan of the coach, we had a great chance to qualify. Today, the dream come true. We compete against Spain, and it's one of the best national team in the world. And we are very, very happy, very proud of all of the players, all the people from Cape Verde.
Spain forward Mikel Oyarzabal acknowledged his team's disappointment, but urged calm after the unexpected stalemate.
Well, it was a tough match, one where they knew exactly what they were going to do. Ultimately, packing 10 to 11 players 5 to 10 meters from their own area was going to be difficult. We knew that. I think we had enough chances to have been more clinical, but we need to stay calm.
The result sparked celebrations far beyond the stadium. In Boston, home to the largest Cape Verdean community in the United States, a city center fan zone erupted with joy at the final whistle.
My God, it's like we won the World Cup because Spain did not score. And then they were set to beat us, to give us like 7. But no, we're small, but we have big heart.
I'm very proud of my country. Yeah, we're very proud. It's our first time in the World Cup, so we came here with no expectations, just hopes and pride.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're just happy. So to be able to, defeat, because, everybody was saying that Spain was going to win. So I'm feeling very proud right now.
For a nation of just over 500,000 people, holding one of the tournament favorites scoreless did feel like a victory, and it marked one of the biggest surprises at the World Cup so far. With some analysis now, Yang Guang joins us in studio. So it may seem unreal, but how did Cape Verde manage to hold off European champions Spain?
Well, yes, it's the biggest shock of the World Cup so far in the tournament's first goalless draw. I believe few people expected that between these two sides. But was it really a miracle? Remember, Cape Verde topped African powerhouse Cameroon in World Cup qualification with signature pragmatic football and resilient defense, and they brought that to the World Cup and caught Spain off guard. Their 40-year-old goalkeeper Vosinia made 7 key saves. It's not a fluke, though his social media followers exploded overnight from 50,000 to 4 million. Spain, on the other hand, must reflect now. They don't have a killer striker stepping up, and before Lamine Yamal came on, they lacked wide threats. Possession means nothing without efficiency. Playing pretty passes in front of the box doesn't win matches. Meanwhile, this match offers the strongest argument for expanding the World Cup to 48 teams. You never know if a tiny nation can topple a giant until they get the chance, and Cape Verde just proved that.
Saudi Arabia earned a hard-fought 1-1 draw against Uruguay on Monday, helping Asian teams maintain their unbeaten start to the 2026 FIFA World Cup. The Saudis stunned the two-time world champions by taking the lead before halftime, but Uruguay responded late in the second half to secure a share of the points. Despite controlling much of the match and creating numerous opportunities, the South Americans were unable to find a winning goal. So, Yang Guang, South American teams still haven't won a single game at this World Cup. What does that underperformance tell us?
Well, South America has long been Europe's closest rival in the football world, but was their winless start a surprise this year? Yes and no. Yes, because playing in the Americas, they should have been more accustomed to the heat and the conditions, yet that edge hasn't materialized. No, because they faced quality opposition. Brazil met Morocco, a top 10 side, while the others took on the host United States, Saudi Arabia, the only team that beat Argentina in Qatar, and the World Cup regulars Cote d'Ivoire. The reality is football has globalized rapidly over the past two decades, and the gap between continents has narrowed. Yes, Europe and South America remain traditional powers, but the rest have caught up very quickly. All eyes now turn to Argentina to salvage South America's reputation, which makes their clash with Algeria a must-watch match.
All right, thank you very much. Belgium had to settle for a 1-1 draw against Egypt in their World Cup Group G opener in Seattle. After a late intervention from substitute Romelu Lukaku, cancelled out Egypt's earlier breakthrough. Egypt, one of Africa's most experienced sides, had taken a first-half lead through Imam Ashour's impressive long-range strike before Belgium pushed forward in search of an equalizer after the break. Lukaku, introduced in the second half, made an immediate impact, and Belgium ultimately rescued a point. Belgium head coach Rudy Garcia reflected on the team's performance.
Je veux bien qu'il fasse chaud, qu'on ait manqué de rythme, de mouvement.
I can accept that it was hot and we lack rhythm and movement, but I think we made too many tactical errors. So after the second half was obviously much better because we started winning the duels, we started losing the ball less, and we started moving more, and we saw the Belgian team capable of influencing the game again.
Elsewhere in Group G, Iran and New Zealand played out an entertaining 2-2 draw in Los Angeles, with Iran coming from behind twice to deny New Zealand a first World Cup win. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in culture and entertainment, Chinese cinema is emerging on the global stage.
Pause Plus, a selection of the best podcasts in China, covering history, customs, music, literature, and in-depth dialogues. Find your way to a wealth of Chinese culture and thinking, all on Pause Plus.
53 past now. As audiences increasingly look beyond Hollywood for fresh perspectives, Chinese cinema is finding a larger global stage. Toronto International Film Festival CEO Cameron Bailey says there's a world hunger for Chinese films. Zheng Chuning spoke to the CEO to find out more.
As someone who has been deeply involved in international film festival communities, you've witnessed how cinema travel across borders and connects different cultures. But what elements of Chinese culture and storytelling traditions do you think resonate with global audiences?
There's some things about the human experience that are common wherever you go in the world. The desires that people have, the way they want to change their lives sometimes, although there might be different circumstances and different cultural traditions. When I first started watching Chinese cinema, this is the cinema that was coming from the fifth generation filmmakers in the 1980s and 90s. And although the culture and the history was very different, what was very common was that story about someone who just wants more than they have right now, and they'll do anything to get it. And that's something that I think any person on any part of the planet can understand.
And now let's talk about the film festival itself. Is this your first time in Shanghai International Film Festival?
It's my second time here. I was here 2 years ago.
What do you make of its role in bringing together filmmakers and creating a space for global exchange and collaboration?
Well, there are two elements of it that I really appreciate about the Shanghai Film Festival. One is that Shanghai is one of the world's great film cities. It's one of the places where cinema really developed first in the 1920s and 30s. And so the festival leans into that history, into that tradition in the same way that, let's say, a city like Paris or Los Angeles might, where cinema was flourishing for many, many decades. At the same time, it's also a festival that's leaning into young cinema from emerging filmmakers. And I like that so many of the films here, particularly the Chinese films, are from people making their very first feature, making their debuts. And it's a great opportunity for the rest of the world who's coming in to discover what's going on right now with new Chinese filmmakers.
And looking ahead into the future, where do you see the greatest potential for the collaboration between China and international film communities?
I think the world is hungry for more Chinese cinema. There have been many different great periods of Chinese filmmaking, going back many decades or more recently with filmmakers like Ning Hao and Zhang Wen when they were making their early films. And I think we're looking for that next generation. Who are the new Chinese filmmakers that we want to see? Who are the new Chinese stars that we want to see? Now is the time, I think, for Chinese filmmakers to get out into the world, and that's why we want to see them at the Toronto Film Festival. We want to be able to present their work at our market that we're starting this September, and I think the whole world is looking for what's new and what's next from China.
That was Toronto International Film Festival CEO Cameron Bailey talking about the growing influence of Chinese filmmaking and the future of cross-cultural collaboration. The 32nd Beijing International Book Fair will open on Wednesday, bringing together more than 1,700 exhibitors from 82 countries and regions in one of the world's largest publishing events. Running through Sunday, the fair will feature the United Arab Emirates as this year's guest of honor. Organizers say the events attracted participants from 10 more countries than last year, further strengthening its international reach. More than 90,000 copyrighted titles and 220,000 physical books will be showcased, alongside over 1,000 cultural exchange activities. We're at 57 past the hour. Beijing getting moderate rainfall tonight. Cloudy tomorrow, low of 20. The high is up to 31 on Wednesday. Shanghai will see overcast conditions tonight and tomorrow. A low of 22 and a high of 30. Chongqing's overcast this evening. Heavy rainfall developing tomorrow. A low of 25 and a high of 29. Nanchang will see overcast skies overnight. Thunder showers developing on Wednesday. The low is 25, the high 33. Lhasa will see cloudy conditions tonight and tomorrow. A low of 13 and a high of 26. Elsewhere in Asia, Islamabad will see a light rainfall tonight and tomorrow. A low of 27, the high is 38 on Wednesday. And that's it for this edition of the Beijing Hour. Making news today, Beijing says China is willing to build a community with a shared future with Myanmar and build on their cooperation. And the U.S. and Iran have electronically signed an MOU for ending the war ahead of a formal ceremony coming up on Friday. On behalf of the staff, this is Shane Bigham in the Chinese capital, hoping you'll join us for the next edition of the Beijing Hour and open a window to the world together.
Find the Beijing Hour at precisely 6 p.m. Beijing time. We meet you on podcast and on air every weekday. The Beijing Hour, your window on China and the rest of the world.
He can't live without the yellow river in his eyes.
The yellow river is so noble and elegant.
Both my grandpa and dad made a living from the river.
Would you like to move away from the Yellow River?
I
don't think I will. I love it so much.
The Yellow River,
The second longest river in China is regarded as a shaping force in the history, economy and culture of northern China. Today, about 100 million people live within its water basin, making up nearly 9% of the country's population. How is climate change felt at its headwaters, and what are the locals doing to cope with it? What are the descendants of the boatmen doing? What has kept some people from leaving their home village by the river, and what has drawn others back? Could the fading fishing community revive in a time of digital transformation? From 2021 to 2024, our reporters visited the upper, middle and lower reaches of the Yellow River, talked to the herders, farmers, boatmen, fishermen and eco-activists who share a close bond with the river, and present their stories in pictures, podcasts and videos, all in our 12-part series, The Yellow River Mosaic, available only on CGTN Radio